I trusted them both. God, how stupid that sounds now. But at the time, it made perfect sense. She was my girl. He was my best friend. The two people I loved most in the world. What could go wrong? Everything. It started with little things. Missed calls. Strange looks. Inside jokes I wasn't part of. But I brushed it off. Told myself I was being paranoid. Insecure. Maybe even jealous. I didn't want to be that guy, the possessive boyfriend who couldn't handle his girlfriend having male friends. Especially when that friend was Mike, my best friend since 8th grade. The guy who knew every secret I ever had. The guy who helped me move, who stayed up with me when my mom died, who I thought would be the best man at my wedding someday. And her? Jess was my everything. We'd been together for almost 3 years. Lived together for 2. I thought I'd marry her. I thought I'd grow old with her. But I didn't know what they were doing behind my back. The first time I really felt something was off, it was a Tuesday. I came home early from work, surprise takeout in hand, hoping to cheer her up after a rough week. I walked into the apartment and heard laughter from the living room. Not hers. His. Mike's voice. My stomach twisted. They were sitting on the couch. Too close. She looked startled when she saw me, like a kid caught with her hand in the cookie jar. Mike, on the other hand, played it cool. Too cool. Hey man, he grinned. Didn't know you were off early? Jess barely smiled. We were just watching something. I looked at the TV. It was paused. I didn't say anything. Just nodded, set the food down, and went to the bathroom. I stared at myself in the mirror. Something about the way she looked at him, it wasn't right. But I didn't have proof. Not then. So I let it slide. God, I wish I hadn't. The days that followed were laced with unease. Just started getting more texts than usual, always turning her screen away when I walked by. Mike stopped coming around as much, not that I complained. But when he did, the tension was thick enough to choke on. It was like they were both trying to act normal, but the effort made it worse. Everything felt staged. Scripted. I remember one night in particular. Jess was in the shower and her phone lit up on the nightstand. I'm not proud of what I did, but I picked it up. Just to look. Just to quiet the storm in my head. I wasn't looking for anything, really. But then I saw his name. Mike. The latest message read, "Last night was insane. I can still smell you." I felt my blood run cold. I froze, phone in hand, heart slamming against my chest like it wanted out. My mouth went dry. My hands started to shake. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just stood there, reading that one line over and over again until it burned into my brain like acid. She came out of the bathroom humming, wrapped in a towel, smiling like nothing was wrong. And in that moment, something in me cracked. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. I just set the phone back down, turned off the light, and pretended to fall asleep. But sleep never came. The next morning, I acted normal. Made her coffee. Kissed her forehead. Watched her leave for work like I always did. But inside, I was unraveling. Every second felt like a lie. Every moment with her now felt polluted. I didn't know what to do, confront her and risk hearing the truth, or stay silent and protect whatever illusion of peace I had left. So I turned to the one person I thought I could trust. My sister, Claire. We met for lunch at a quiet cafe downtown. I told her everything, the weird vibe, the message, the gut feeling I couldn't shake. She didn't hesitate. You need to know the truth, Adam. Even if it hurts. I nodded. But knowing and seeing were two very different things. And I wasn't ready for what I'd soon find. Claire didn't just offer comfort. She offered action. Hire someone, she said. A private investigator. If they're sneaking around, he'll find out. No guessing. No more sleepless nights. At first, I resisted. It felt like a violation, not just of her privacy, but of everything I thought we had. But then I thought of that message. I can still smell you. Those 6 words haunted me. Mocked me. I couldn't pretend anymore. I had to know. So I did it. I found a guy online. Discreet, expensive, professional. We met in a coffee shop far from home. I handed him a photo of Jess and another of Mike. He just nodded. No judgment. No questions. The next few days were agony. Every vibration from my phone made my heart pound. Every minute Jess was gone felt like a threat. I couldn't look her in the eyes. Couldn't kiss her. Couldn't even touch her without flinching. She noticed. She asked if I was okay. Said I seemed distant. I lied and told her work was stressful. She hugged me. Told me she loved me. The words felt hollow. Like they didn't belong to me anymore. Then the investigator called. I've got something, he said. You ready for this? I wasn't. But I said yes. He sent photos. My hands trembled as I opened the email. And there they were. Jess and Mike. In a parking garage. Her hand in his. Their faces close, too close. And then the final shot. Them kissing. Not a friendly peck. Not a misunderstanding. It was real, raw, intimate, familiar. My heart didn't break. It imploded. Quietly, violently. I stared at those photos for hours. I zoomed in, zoomed out, tried to find some explanation, some context. Maybe they were drunk. Maybe it was a mistake. But no, their smiles were too calm, too deliberate, like they'd done it before, like they'd do it again. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just shut down. I knew what I had to do next, but I didn't know if I had the strength to follow through. The plan came to me in a haze. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want yelling or broken dishes or some emotional meltdown. I just wanted clarity. A confession. I wanted to look her in the eye and hear the truth from her lips. And I wanted Mike there too. No escape. No excuses. So I waited. I waited until Friday night, when I knew Jess would think I was working late and Mike was out with the guys. I texted them both, told them I had a surprise. Come to the apartment at 8. Don't be late. She replied with a heart emoji. He didn't reply at all. They arrived 10 minutes apart. First Jess, all dressed up, like she expected a date night. Then Mike, casual, confident, probably thinking he was about to help me pull off some elaborate romantic stunt. Neither of them expected to see the other walk through the door. I stood there in the kitchen, arms crossed, photos printed and spread across the table like evidence at a trial. Jess froze. Mike looked from me to her, then to the table. Silence swallowed the room. What is this? Jess asked, voice tight. I think you know, I said, calm. Too calm. She looked down, saw the pictures. Her face drained of color. Mike stepped forward. Man, I can explain. No, I interrupted. You don't get to explain. You don't get to say anything. Not yet. Jess's lip trembled. Adam, please. I held up my hand. How long? She blinked, stunned. What? How long have you two been fucking behind my back? Her mouth opened, then shut. Mike stepped in again. It wasn't like that. Shut up, I snapped. You're my best friend. You were supposed to have my back, not stab it. Jess finally spoke, voice shaking. It started a few months ago. It was stupid. We didn't mean. Don't, I said, my voice cracking for the first time. Don't stand there and pretend this was some accident. You had choices, both of you, and you chose this. They didn't respond, just stared at the floor like kids caught stealing. I want you out, I told Jess. Tonight. She looked up, eyes wide. What? You heard me. Pack your shit and get out. And you? I turned to Mike. I never want to see you again. You're dead to me. Neither of them fought back. Maybe they knew they couldn't. Maybe they felt guilty. Maybe they just didn't care enough to try. I watched them go, one after the other, carrying pieces of my life out the door. And then I was alone. Completely, utterly alone. The silence after they left was deafening. No more footsteps. No soft laughter from the other room. No familiar voice calling out my name. Just me. Alone in a half-empty apartment filled with ghosts. I stood in the middle of the living room, surrounded by the wreckage of a life I thought I knew. Her jacket still hung on the back of the chair. A coffee mug she used every morning sat in the sink. The scent of her perfume lingered in the air like a cruel memory. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor, knees drawn to my chest, staring at the photos I had printed, now scattered and crumpled on the table. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces, heard their voices, remembered every moment that now felt poisoned. Birthdays, road trips, lazy Sundays watching movies, all of it a lie. I started to question everything. Was she ever really mine? Did he start plotting this the moment they met? Did she laugh with him about me behind my back? Did she come home from his place and crawl into my bed like nothing happened? The betrayal was so total, so complete, it didn't just break my heart. It shattered my entire perception of reality. I didn't just lose a girlfriend. I lost a best friend, a brother, my past, my present, my imagined future, all erased in one night. People say time heals everything. But that first week, time only made it worse. Every hour brought a new realization, a new wave of grief. I stopped eating. I ignored calls. I went to work, but barely functioned. People asked what was wrong. I lied, said I was tired, said I had the flu. I couldn't bring myself to say it out loud. If I said it, it would be real. And I wasn't ready for that. Claire was the only one who knew. She came over, cleaned up the apartment, made me food I barely touched. She didn't say much, just sat beside me while I stared at the wall. Her quiet presence was the only thing that didn't feel fake. Then one night, about 10 days after the confrontation, Jess tried to call. I stared at the screen, her name glowing like an old wound. I didn't answer. She texted, "Can we talk?" Talk? What the hell was left to say? But still, my thumb hovered over the screen, torn between hate and longing, between the urge to scream and the sick need to hear her voice again. I didn't reply, not yet, but part of me wanted to, and I hated that part with everything I had. 2 days passed before I finally gave in and opened her message. It was long, rambling, desperate in tone. She said she didn't expect forgiveness, said she just wanted me to understand, that it didn't start as anything serious, that she and Mike were both hurting and vulnerable. And one thing led to another. She used words like confused and ashamed. She called what they had a mistake, as if cheating with my best friend was a wrong turn on a map instead of a deliberate betrayal of everything I believed in. She said she missed me, that she couldn't sleep, that she still loved me, and in some twisted, pathetic part of me, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to pretend it wasn't real, that maybe we could rewind, undo it all. But then I'd see that damn photo, her hands on his chest, his lips on hers, and the wave of nausea would hit again, brutal and unforgiving. I didn't reply, not to that message, not to the second or the third. She tried calling again, left a voicemail this time. Her voice cracked halfway through it, like she was crying, said she didn't recognize herself anymore, that what they had wasn't worth what she lost. It almost broke me, but what truly crushed me was what came next. A week later, Mike showed up at my door. I didn't open it. He knocked again, harder this time. "Adam, man, just let me talk." I stood behind the door, fists clenched, breathing like I'd just run a marathon. "I messed up," he said. "I know I did. But I miss you, man. I miss my best friend." He sounded sincere, like the old Mike, the one who used to crash on my couch and drink beer with me on Sundays, the one who helped me build that bookshelf that still stood in the living room, the one I once called my brother. But brothers don't fuck each other's girlfriends. So I turned up the volume on the TV and waited for him to give up. Eventually, he did. He left behind a note, scribbled on a crumpled receipt. "I'm sorry," it read. "I'll always be sorry." I tore it in half, then in half again, and again, until it was nothing but dust between my fingers. After that day, something in me shifted. The anger began to dull, but not in the way I expected. It didn't disappear. It just sank deeper, burrowed into my bones, became part of me, like a shadow I couldn't shake. I wasn't yelling or throwing things or crying anymore. I was just empty. I went through the motions of living, but everything felt muted, like I was watching my own life from the outside. My friends invited me out. I declined. My coworkers noticed my silence. I brushed them off. The world kept spinning, but I stayed still, caught in the gravity of betrayal. Nights were the worst. I'd lie in bed and replay every conversation, every touch, every moment when I should have seen the signs. I dissected every smile she gave him in my presence, every time he called her Jay instead of Jess, like they had their own private code. I remembered how he used to nudge me, joking, "You're lucky, man. She's a keeper." And I'd laugh proud. God, how blind I was, how stupid. There was one night, a Thursday, when I finally broke. I came home, tossed my keys on the table, and just stood there, looking around the apartment. It felt like walking through a museum of betrayal. I saw the couch where she used to curl up with me, where they probably kissed when I wasn't home. I saw the kitchen counter where I'd made her breakfast, where she'd probably texted him while pretending to love me. I sank to the floor. No tears, no screams, just silence. I stayed there for hours, until the room grew dark and the only light came from the street lamp outside. That's when the rage returned. Sudden, sharp, unstoppable. I grabbed a box. I started with her things. Makeup, perfume, photos, notes. Then his old birthday cards, gifts, stupid little trinkets from the years of friendship that now felt like lies. I threw it all into the box. No mercy, no hesitation. Then I carried it down to the alley behind the building and dumped it in the trash. It wasn't cathartic. It wasn't satisfying. It just was a symbolic gesture in a war I had already lost. I came back upstairs, poured myself a drink, and sat in silence. No music, no TV, just me and the weight of what used to be. I realized in that moment that the worst part of betrayal isn't the lie. It's the fact that you believed it for so long. It took me weeks before I could walk past her favorite coffee shop without feeling like I might collapse. Months before I stopped checking her social media late at night, some sick compulsion to see if she'd moved on, or worse, if she hadn't. Every time I saw a couple laughing in the street, I felt a sting, like a ghost was gripping my chest from the inside. I wondered if they were lying to each other too. I wondered if they'd fall apart the way we did. But slowly, and I mean painfully, excruciatingly slowly, I started to come back to life. It didn't happen all at once. There was no big moment of awakening. No dramatic speech in the mirror. Just tiny things. I said yes to grabbing a beer with my coworker Mark. I cleaned out the apartment, not just her stuff, but everything that made it feel like a shrine to a failed relationship. I painted the walls a different color. Bought a new set of dishes. Threw out the damn couch. I started journaling, something I hadn't done since college. Every night, I poured it all out. The rage, the confusion, the sadness, and eventually the reflection. I stopped asking why she did it. Stopped trying to understand Mike's betrayal. Some things aren't meant to be understood. Some things are just broken. One night, maybe 6 months after it all blew up, I ran into Claire's friend Anna at a bookstore. We talked for a while. Laughed. She asked if I wanted to grab a coffee sometime. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel guilty for smiling. I didn't feel like I was betraying some ghost version of Jess. I said yes. It wasn't love. Not right away. But it was something. A flicker. A beginning. And that was enough. Because I wasn't looking to replace Jess. I wasn't trying to fill the void she left behind. I was trying to rediscover the parts of myself she didn't get to destroy. The parts that were mine before her. Before the lies. Before the betrayal. And maybe, just maybe, I was learning to trust again. Not in her. Not in Mike. But in me. It was bound to happen eventually. In a city this size, with our overlapping circles and shared past, the odds were never in my favor. I was out with Anna one afternoon, walking through a downtown flea market when I heard someone call my name. I turned around and there she was, Jess. Standing maybe 20 feet away, her hair shorter, her smile unsure, like she didn't know if she was allowed to wear it in front of me. She looked thinner. Tired. Like the months had been just as unkind to her. Anna sensed it instantly. I felt her hand gently squeeze mine. Jess's eyes flicked down to that, to Anna's fingers wrapped around mine, and I saw something shift in her expression. Regret, maybe? Or sadness? Or both? Hey, she said softly, walking toward us. I nodded. That was all I could manage at first. Anna introduced herself politely, clearly picking up on the tension. Jess didn't acknowledge her. She only looked at me. You look good, she said, eyes searching my face. I didn't return the compliment. Not because she didn't look good, she did, in that familiar, painful way, but because I didn't owe her that anymore. I didn't owe her anything. What do you want, Jess? I asked, my voice steady, not cold, just distant. She hesitated, then pulled in a breath. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Again. I know you probably don't care. And I get that. But I think about what I did every day. About how I hurt you. About how I ruined everything. I felt Anna's fingers tighten slightly. I didn't look at her, but I could feel her presence beside me, calm, grounded, real. I loved you, Jess continued. And I know that sounds hollow now, but it was true. I just didn't know how to handle what I was feeling. I was selfish. I was stupid. And I've paid for it. For a moment, I didn't say anything. I just looked at her, not the woman I once loved, but the stranger she'd become. And surprisingly, I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel sadness. I didn't feel much of anything. Just a distant kind of acceptance. I believe you, I said finally. That you're sorry. But that doesn't change what happened. It doesn't undo what you did. I know, she whispered. We stood there in silence for a beat longer. Then she gave me a small, broken smile, nodded, and walked away, disappearing into the crowd like a chapter closing itself. I turned to Anna. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said. Actually, I think I am. And for the first time in a long time, I meant it. Time has a strange way of blurring things. What once felt sharp and unbearable slowly fades, softens at the edges. The pain never really disappears, it just gets buried under layers of living. New routines. New faces. New memories that, if you're lucky, don't carry the same bitter aftertaste. I don't think you ever forget the people who break you. But you do eventually stop letting them define you. It's been over a year now since that night, the night I confronted them, the night my world cracked open. I no longer live in that apartment. I moved to a smaller place, something quieter, simpler. I kept the bookshelf Mike helped build, not out of sentiment, but because I refused to let his memory rob me of something I still like. Some scars stay, but I choose how they heal. Anna is still in my life. What started as coffee and cautious conversations turned into something steady. Something warm. She knows my story. All of it. I didn't hide it from her. I wanted to be honest about the damage, the doubts, the moments where I still flinch at certain things. She listens. She never judges. She gives me space when I need it and anchors me when I drift. One night, lying next to her in bed, she whispered, "You don't have to rush anything. Just be here. That's enough." And I realized maybe love isn't about grand gestures or dramatic promises. Maybe it's about quiet understanding. The kind that doesn't need to be earned. Just felt. Sometimes I still think about Jess. Not in a longing way. Just as a memory. A reminder of who I was. Of how much I survived. I don't wish her harm. I hope she finds peace. And Mike? I've let go of that anger too. Carrying it around didn't punish him, it only poisoned me. So I let it go. Not for him. For me. This story doesn't end with revenge. Or justice. Or some movie-worthy redemption. It ends with a man bruised but not broken, choosing to keep moving forward. Because life isn't about what destroys us. It's about what we build in the ruins. And I'm still building. One quiet, honest, healing day at a time.